basically only 4 creatures, 3 Thundermaws and 1 Olivia. But all his spells are very anti-control, and he's got a lot of, but he also has a lot of mass removal. So he has 2 Barter Blood, 3 Mutilate, and 2 Curse of Death Soul to kind of deal with the hexproof creatures.
Okay.
And he's got Key Runes. He has 4 Slaughter Games in his main deck.
You can see the 4 too.
Yeah, he highlighted it. It's actually, he used a black magic marker to write in the 4. So his anti-control cards are 3 Duress, 4 Slaughter Games, which is not something you often see in the main deck.
Yeah, not at all.
Of a Jund deck. So he's very, and he's 2 Liliana of the Veil as well. So he's very anti-control game 1.
We do see both players underway. We are starting round 1 here. Walter and Robert look to keep their opening hands. We see a Steam Vents and a Clifftop Retreat here for Walter, and a Rakdos Guildgate over there for Robert, one of my least favorite lands, as it always comes into play at the wrong time when I'm playing Black-Red Zombies. And we're going to see a Blood Crypt here. So just a little draw go to start this game off so far. Interesting matchup. I mean, you can definitely see that the concessions that Robert has made to the Bant Hexproof deck, and we might see that a lot over the course of the day.
Well, the good thing is that he has a Slaughter Games in his hand, so he's going to be able to get the Sphinx's Revelation, which is pretty powerful. But again, it looks like Walters only has 2 Sphinx's Revelation in his main deck. So.
Yeah, so he's not even hell-bent on really even casting that card.
But still, you want to get rid of that card. But again, Walter's blue-white deck is a little different than the traditional blue-white deck, so Robert might not really know what to name. I think he's going to go for Sphinx's Revelation, but sometimes you might want to name Restoration Angel depending on your hand.
So we do see Walter, he cycled a Azorius Charm in his main phase on turn 3 to hit his land drop, which he did with Clifftop Retreat, but you see he misses his land this turn, and Robert, with his 4 mana, looking to take advantage, and we are going to see that Slaughter Games, and he did start to tap his mana a little bit.
Sorry.
So that is not going to be counterable, so we'll see what he's going to name, and you think it's going to be Sphinx's Revelation?
I think you have to name Sphinx's Revelation, just because you're not sure exactly what type of blue-white-red deck he is. He could be the Thundermaw deck. He could be a Jerry T deck. So I think the one thing you know all those decks have in common is Sphinx's Revelation.
And he's going to opt to actually name Restoration Angel here, and I have bad news for Robert because, and this is strange, but there are no copies of that card in Walter's main deck, and taking a look here, there's none in the sideboard either. I mean, I think Restoration Angel is a perfectly reasonable name.
Like I said, that was the second card I'd be most afraid of coming out of a blue-white-red deck, but the thing is, you don't know if they're gonna. Maybe they're blue-white-red planeswalkers. Maybe he's like, I don't really want to play creatures. I'm just gonna play Pillar of Flames and to deal with zombies. But I'm gonna be more of a planeswalker control deck. The only card that you know any blue-white deck's gonna have in common is gonna be Sphinx's Revelation.
Sure.
So I think with only 3 lands in play, particularly, I think I would prefer to name Sphinx's Revelation there because you just know you're gonna hit. You're likely gonna hit, and you really don't want to miss, especially when you're already ahead. But, you know, it's fine. Now he has information on his deck, and his opponent's still behind on mana, so...
It's certainly a comfort as well, just knowing that, like, now that he has information, not ever have to worry about Restoration Angel.
Yeah, he doesn't have to worry about Restoration, and he knows his opponent only has 2 Sphinx's Revelation now, so he definitely gained a lot of information.
So taking a look at Walter's hand there on the table, there's an Angel Serenity, there's a Terminus, a Snapcaster Mage, the aforementioned Niv Mizzet, there's an Azorius Charm as well. 2 cards we can't really see through the glare very well. If we can get a zoom in, we might be able to make those out, but I know he will be picking them up shortly.
Well, the great thing for Robert now is if Walter does draw a land, then he knows that he's cleared to play the Olivia next turn if he wants to. Because Walter will likely cast the Snapcaster to cycle Azorius Charm again.
Sure, just to make sure that he can hit his land drops.
But if he doesn't draw a land, I'm not sure if Walter has, I don't think he has a Counterflux. I'm not sure if I saw a Counterflux or not.
Yeah, couldn't make it out through the glare, unfortunately. So we'll see. I mean, Walter...
Looks like a main phase think twice.
Yep.
Oh, no, he's discarding it. Okay,
Ooh,
yep, so he definitely has Counterflux now.
Okay. Well, the interesting is, I mean, he definitely has Counterflux, but with the card costs blue, it costs blue, red to cast, and if unless my eyes are deceiving me, I believe he has 2 Clifftop Retreats and a Steam Vents in play.
Oh, yeah.
So that play is a little strange to me.
And he flashes back. Oh, yeah, that doesn't make much sense. And I'm surprised that Robert didn't cast the Olivia last turn, because he knows Walter can't Counterflux anything. And the only removal that he saw was Azorius Charm and a Terminus, which aren't really going to do much right now.
But instead, what you guys saw was Walter just discarding things twice for his cleanup step, playing Snapcaster Mage, not getting any value off of it. Now he can't even attack, so it really just begs the question of what really is the game plan here.
Yeah.
You know, what is he crafting here, and just not really getting any value, especially when he's stuck on mana. Just no value from a Snapcaster Mage, as we are going to see Pillar of Flame target that Snapcaster Mage.
Again, you know, I'm not sure why you'd waste a Pillar there when he didn't attack last turn because of the Rakdos Keyrune.
That Rakdos Keyrune doing such a nice job of just holding off. So,
honestly, not casting the Olivia last turn is really going to hurt Robert because he needs to press his advantage here while Walter is kind of behind on mana. And you know, now he's going to lose another draw step because of the Azorius Charm. So Walter is definitely still in this game. And again, if he draws land Sphinx of Revelation, he's definitely in this game.
Yeah, without question. Because we are going to see Walter take a draw step here. See if he can find that 5th land. He does just pass back. This time holding up the counterflux, man.
Well, he's got to be careful because he can't counterflux the Rakdos Keyrune because we know that Robert has a Rakdos Return in his hand.
Yeah.
But Walter might decide to just, because his deck doesn't have many answers to a Keyrune. I don't think he plays. Does he play Searing Spear?
Taking a look at that deck list right now, there actually are no Searing Spears here.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me, 2. 2 copies of it. I apologize.
Okay, so he's going to flashback, I think, twice here.
But his options are definitely limited as a way to get that card
Yeah,
off the
there's
table.
not many ways to deal with the Keyrune, but good news for Walter, he didn't counterflux it, so he can still deal with the Rakdos Return if it comes down to it.
So we see Glacial Fortress here from Walter, finally finding that 5th land drop, finally moving on past that Think Twice, and does just pass back again, still representing counterflux. And now as Robert draws a Liliana Veil, he actually does have like a card that's worth testing, you know, as far as running it into a counterspell.
Yeah. The thing is, though, I think you have to lead with Olivia to hope to bait a counterspell because with Walter at 5 mana, he's close to Terminus now, so it's not like Olivia's probably going to survive.
Sure.
So, but at least you can try to bait out the counterflux. If Walter doesn't counterflux the Olivia, then he'll eventually have to Terminus, which means he'll tap out, which means then he can pass the Rakdos Return.
Sure.
And be in a really good position. But he can't do nothing. Like the attack there, I didn't like that attack. He's got to press his advantage. And again, the more mana that Walter gets into play, the better his position is going to be because he's going to get a Sphinx of Revelation, and now he drops into Mizzet. So, but again, Robert has an answer to it. But still, it just would have been a lot better if he was able to get the Olivia into play last turn.
And we will bring Niv Mizzet up on the screen for you guys because it is not often seen in Standard. And, you know, by Walter tapping out on this, he's definitely put his shields down now as well. Now, I mean, fortunately for Robert, he does have that Liliana, but it's surprisingly not going to cast that. Going to Rakdos Return to take care of things here. So that's a little bit surprising as well.
I do not like... I mean... The only issue I have with this play is that if Walter is able to draw another counterflux, and he's basically going to get, I think, 2 draw steps.
Yeah.
Or he's going to get 3 additional draw steps. He's going to get his normal draw phase, the one with the Niv attack, and then he can activate Niv Mizzet once to draw another card. So if he draws a counterflux and is able to stop the Liliana, Robert doesn't really have another answer to Niv Mizzet.
So it's definitely a risk that Robert
is taking. It's a risk. It's a very risk, and I don't think it was a necessary risk because Liliana is very good against Walter's deck anyway, and eventually you'll be able to resolve the... I would have preferred to go Liliana Olivia, making Walter sack the Mizzet, forcing Walter to cast Terminus, then you cast Rakdos Return, emptying his hand, but you already have a Liliana in play, and you can uptick it now.
Sure.
So you're pretty much clear the path for any spell you want to cast for the remainder of the game.
Now we are going to see Rakdos Keyrune lead things off here, which I can't imagine Walter would counter, obviously, because he does have the Mizzet in play. Now you are going to see Liliana.
So you know, if he doesn't draw counterflux, he at least has an answer. But
he could have Snapcaster Mage as well.
Yeah, if he draws, he needed a Snapcaster there.
And you see, I think we're going to see a Niv Mizzet activation here.
It looks like he's just going to draw 2 cards.
Yeah. 1 and 2. And he's going to make him sacrifice Niv Mizzet predictably.
I'm surprised he didn't kill the Liliana.
Yeah, as am I.
With the ability on the stack. Because he basically could have done another damage.
So Liliana sticking around, taking care of Niv Mizzet here. And now we'll see if Walter can come back, because as you said, I mean, Liliana being in play is an issue. You know, now you can just start attacking from different angles, but we are going to see Pillar of Flame take care of that. Any follow-ups here from Walter? No, he's just going to pass the turn back.
See, that's just why I hated leading with the Rakdos return, because Walter now has 2 cards in his hand, and Robert doesn't even have his Liliana in play anymore. So it didn't accomplish that much, and he exposed himself to a counterflux. So.
But we do see Rakdos return come across here for Robert, and he saw a little fist pump there saying, "Finally, I got through my 3 damage. No more Azorius Charms." And you do see him the Olivia being pushed forward here, and it is going to come into play.
I don't know. I mean, he knows he has the Terminus, but I guess he just doesn't mind. Oh no, I'm sorry. He made him discard the Terminus. Correct.
So now we are going
I
to
hope
see.
this isn't Sphinx's Revelation.
I have bad news. It is.
Yep, should have named it.
Regretting that slaughter games now, as Walter is going to Revelate for 4, get himself 4 cards, get himself 4 life, push himself up to 16. And this is the card that, you know, obviously is defining this format to a certain extent, but it's the kind of card that Black-Red Control just doesn't have an answer to. Can't keep up with it.
Yeah. Well, they do have an answer. Robert just didn't name it.
Sure.
But, you know, as my grandfather said, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, then the whole world would be a better place.
Candy and nuts, that sounds good. Maybe on break. So we'll see what Walter can do now with these new cards here. I think it's going to start with taking care of Olivia, and he's going to do just that.
Wow.
By spearing that right away. And so that's going to bite the dust. And now it's just going to be kind of, you know, your 1-for-1 trades to get rid of things.
Not often you see a Searing Spear be able to deal with an Olivia.
It's a little bit rare. Robert is going to draw a card here. Draws, I think that was was that a Bonfire of the Damned? Does he have that in his deck list?
Yes, he has 2
2 copies of that? Okay. He did not. He did not
maybe
cast that.
He wanted to attack instead of dealing 7, or maybe he thought he had a counterspell. I'm not sure.
But we're going to see Curse of Deathhold here.
I'd put the odds on he just simply drew too quickly.
Yeah. It looks like we saw an attack with Rakdos Key Rune and then Curse of Deathhold. Walter's going to take a look at that, and we'll bring that up for you guys as well. It is the enchantment that's going to give all of Walter's creatures -1/-1. Looking over his deck list, I mean, not a lot of creatures here that really are affected by that, just 2 Snapcaster Mages. He has a Niv Mizzet, which is already gone, and then the 2 copies of Angel Serenity, one of which is in the graveyard. So it has some effect, but not a ton. Also, he has 2 copies of Entreat the Angels, and obviously Curse is not going to do a good job of fighting that. But is he going to be able to ride Rakdos Key Rune to victory, which is what it looks like he's trying to do. And again, 2 Searing Spears, one of which is gone, and we already know the Snapcaster's gone, so there aren't a lot of ways, oddly enough, for Walter to get this off the board.
Yeah, Walter really needs the 2nd Revelation or to top deck an Entreat the Angel. I think a top deck Entreat. Oh, you know what? That's probably why Robert didn't cast the Bonfire. He knows about the Entreat the Angels because he slaughter games them.
Sure. Okay.
So why would I bother? I know that Walter's only out to me is probably a Sphinx's Revelation or a Entreat the Angel. So at least I have one answer to that.
And speaking of Sphinx's Revelation, the 2nd one has been drawn. It has been cast for 7. And if he wasn't kicking himself before...
Robert is... Why did I name Restoration Angel?
I think he is kicking himself now. And I think, you know, one thing that's kind of interesting here, Osip, is that, you know, it's really about knowing what your deck does pretty well. You look at Robert's deck list, which you have in front of you. He has so much removal.
He has a lot of removal, which is kind of surprising. Why I wasn't sure why he named Restoration Angel, especially with his opponent. I mean, maybe he thought, oh, my opponent's stuck at 3. Maybe he has a couple of Restoration Angels stuck in his hand. I'll be able to 2-for-1 him. But you have Rakdos Return. I mean, I'm not. If I'm a Rakdos deck, I'm not too concerned about like making my opponent discard 2 cards. I'm really concerned about making sure they don't top deck a Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah.
Because that's what kills him.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you're seeing in this game. I mean, he top decked the first one, let him draw 4 cards, gain him 4 life, increase his velocity, ran into the second one, and it almost feels like there's no coming back from this, and then just inevitability is on Walter's side right now.
But the great thing is that Robert did play correctly. He did not miracle the Bonfire when he drew it, if he did in fact draw a Bonfire. And I'm assuming he did that because he knew about the Entreat the Angels, and now he has an answer for it.
And we do see Entreat the Angels here for 4/4 Angels. They're actually going to be 3/3s because of Curse of Deathhold. And as long as we're correct here in the booth that Robert does have Bonfire the Damned in his hand, this is just going to be a simple 1-for-1 trade. I mean, there will be some damage, of course, dealt to Walter, but it will take care of all the Angels on the board.
But Walter still has a lot of cards in his hand, and I believe he has another Entreat I saw. Can't be positive, but you know that those two Sphinxes of Revelation really are what put him back in this game.
Yeah.
And again, if you're casting slaughter games against your blue-white opponent, you have to name Sphinxes of Revelation.
I think that's certainly step one.
You have to name it first. I think there's very few situations where I would name Restoration Angel first, especially if I didn't know exactly what my opponent's list was.
Yeah. And again, with the composition of his deck. Hold on, we're getting something here from our director. Walter may have missed his draw step after his revelation, so we'll be getting that cleared up for you guys. That's why there's the momentary break in play, and it looks like it is already actually taken care of. So good work by the judges there, making sure there's not much of a problem.
Wow, another Rakdos return. Let's hope he
does a nice job against Sphinx of Revelation.
Well, I think he has to cast the Bonfire first though, because if Robert's at 13, you know, he can't really take 12 in the air.
Yeah, kind of a rock hard play situation.
Yeah,
here.
it's tough.
We're going to see some mana here. It does look like he's lining up a Bonfire for 3 as you see him pull the red down with the Summit, and we are going to see Bonfire for 3.
Yeah.
So that's going to clear all of those Angels away. It's also going to deal Walter 3 damage, pushing his life down to 14. I actually think Kirun might be able to sneak in an attack here as well.
Yeah, that's why he didn't do the extra 2, or the extra 1.
So it's going to knock Walter down to 11. So, I mean, good use of mana that turn. You know, takes care of the problem that's on the board, and does have a Rakdos return at the ready.
And good foresight by Robert by not miracling the Bonfire, knowing that the Entreats were still in the deck.
Now, believe it or not, you don't have to miracle every time.
No.
There's no rule that says you have to do that.
Although if Walter top deck and Entreat the Angels there, I'm pretty sure he would have miracled it. That is one time I would gladly miracle and Entreat the Angels. So, yep, it looks like he has
I see the second
another. And I believe he also has a Dissipate, so he might want to hold back 3 mana this time around to ensure that he has some Angels in play.
And I think he is agreeing with you, as you do see 3 mana left over there. A Sulphur Falls, a Clifftop Retreat, and a Steam Vents there on the bottom of Walter's mana base. You're going to see more Angels join the fray, just 3 this time.
Yeah,
he
really doesn't need 4. I mean, it's basically a 2-turn clock regardless, so might as well keep up the Dissipate.
So now we'll see what Walter has drawn. Again, or excuse me, we'll see what Robert has drawn. Again, Walter's deck list does have those there's 3 copies of Dissipate actually, and then he has the 1 Counterflux. So he does have 4 counter spells in his main deck. And we do know that Robert has that Rakdos return, but what else does he have over there is the question. Does he have a Bonfire to get himself out of the situation? You see a Tragic Slip in his hand right now. Does he have one of his copies of Barter in Blood?
He might just try for the Rakdos return here.
And that's what we're going to see. We're going to see a Rakdos return here for 4.
Again, Robert has Mutilate in his deck. And Walter likely is not aware of that. So is that what we're going to see here?
That's exactly what we're going to see. So Mutilate is going to take care of those Angels, as you do see the 4 mana being tapped. So good. I mean, good play by Robert there.
Yeah,
Rakdos returning for 4 to get the counter spell out of his hand.
Yeah, has to force. But the thing is though, I believe Walter has maybe 6 cards in his hand at the time. He could have let it resolve and just kept it Dissipate.
Yeah.
You know, he could have said, I don't need this Terminus. I don't need this land in my hand. He's got 2 Terminus. He's got Pillar of Flames. He could have said, I don't need these 4 cards. I just need to win with the Angels in play, so I'm going to do everything I can to ensure that I do that. So if I were Walter, I probably would have just taken the 4, discarded 2 Terminus, a land, and a Pillar of Flames, and just ensured that I was going to win with my Angels. But now he doesn't have another Sphinx's Revelation to top deck, and I believe he only has 1 Entreat the Angels left in his deck. Or no, that's it, no more.
We're in this interesting situation here in this game in that if you take a look at Walter's deck list, he doesn't have a lot of win conditions.
Yeah.
And Niv Mizzet, he has 1 copy, gone. 2 Snapcaster Mages, you can't even look at that as a win condition because of Curse of Deathhold. 1 of them is gone. 2 copies of Angel's Serenity. One of them was discarded to Rakdos Return earlier, so he has one of those left. As we're going to see Robert cast a Thunder Maw Hellkite here, and then 2 copies of Entreat the Angel. Both of those are taken care of. So now we're in this interesting situation of how is Walter actually going to be able to win this game? As you see Thunder Maw Hellkite rumbling over here to deal Walter 5 points of damage. And I mean, you can look for a card here like, how can he get through his deck? Desolate Lighthouse doesn't exist. Moorland Haunt not in the deck list. And he only has 5 creatures anyway to remove to it. So I think we're in this situation here where he's kind of on Angel Serenity or bust.
Yeah, he doesn't have. That's pretty much the only way he's to be able to win this game. And there we go. We have concession. And this game was just a perfect example of how one mistake can cost you the game, because Robert clearly should have named Sphinx's Revelation with the original Slaughter games.
Sure.
By not doing that, he gave Walter an opportunity to get back in the game. And some people might say, well, Walter only has 2 Sphinx's Revelation in his deck. He got lucky to draw them. But luck doesn't matter if your opponent makes mistakes. And Robert made a mistake.
Yeah.
And he allowed Walter to top deck those cards. And Walter's mistake was not just allowing a Rakdos Return for 4 to resolve.
Sure.
I mean, he had 6 to 7 cards in his hand, and the Terminuses weren't doing anything. He could have discarded 4 cards and kept the Dissipate to ensure that Robert didn't have anything else. And obviously, Mutilate might not be a card that you would expect to see,
yeah.
But still, if it's not impact, if it's, that you have to win with those Angels.
Yep.
That's one of your very few win conditions left in your deck. You have to win with that. You have to do everything you can to ensure. And had he discarded down to 2 cards, Dissipated and Mutilate, he probably wins that game.
Yeah, I think he definitely wins that game. Interesting. Just those small decisions. They seem like they may not matter, and it's scary. Like you have a Rakdos Return targeting you, you're just going, whoa. I mean, that's like a huge splashy effect. Should I let that resolve? Easy to pull the trigger on a counterspell there, but didn't really assess, exactly what kind of effect that would have on the game. If he lets it resolve, it just seems like it's pretty easy.
It's tough because, especially from Robert's perspective, early in the game, you name Slaughter games. Your opponent stalled on mana. You have a pretty good hand against control. You have the Liliana, you have the Olivia. You can kind of assume that, all right, well, I missed here, but that's fine. I'm still ahead.
Sure.
But, a card like Sphinx's Revelation is so powerful that it doesn't matter how far ahead you think you are. If they top deck that card, you're going to be behind suddenly. And Robert wasn't really doing a good job of pressing his advantage earlier in the game.
Yeah.
He wasn't maximizing his mana. He was attacking with his Key Rune and getting an Azorius Charm, so he's missing draw steps. So Robert was definitely letting the game slip out of his control, and Walter just made one mistake.
Yep.
He didn't realize that Robert had as many answers to Entreat the Angels as he did, and it cost him the game.
Taking a look at Walter's sideboard here, as he will be on the play this game, he does have an additional copy of Counterflux, so he can move up to 5 counter spells post-board if he'd like. You're going to find 2 copies of Feeling Dread, obviously not for this matchup. A Rest in Peace, can't imagine that coming in here. 2 Purify the Grave, 2 Erase, 4 more cards that aren't going to join us. 3 Jace Memory Adept, however, I think are almost certainly going to come in here, as give him an alternate way to win the game. He does look like he needs to increase his ways to actually be able to kill his opponent. A copy of Psychic Spiral may join us, a Negate, a Dispel, and an Oblivion Ring. So definitely some options here, and with how we saw that game play out, you have a bunch of Wraths here. He has 4 Terminus, 2 Supreme Verdicts, 1 copy of Feeling of Dread, some Pillar of Flames, definitely some cards that he can move out of here as well. Detention Sphere, so a lot of things that he can move in and out.
Mm. Yeah, and Robert's deck is pretty much already geared to beat Control Game 1. He doesn't have that many cards in his sideboard against Control. He has 2 Pithing Needle, 1 Tribute. I could see him bringing in another Bonfire. He has Nighthawk, which probably won't come in. Rakdos Charm, I don't see that coming in. Grafdigger's Cage. Staff of Nim, Elixir of Mortality. I could see him bringing in the Needle, the Tribute to Hunger, the Bonfire, and the Staff. And probably taking out Pillar of Flame and probably the Barter and Blood as well. Maybe Curse of Death's Hold. But again, his deck has so many anti-control cards game 1 that there's not much he wants to take out of it.
Yeah, just sideboard a lot. He's got a lot of removal in his deck. He can sideboard some of that stuff.
Yeah.
He's still going to be stuck with some of it in, but he probably needs to leave some of it in as well. So to be able to combat those and treat the Angels on stuff, it's kind of weird that he has to leave Mutilate in what you would consider to be a pretty poor card in this matchup.
If I had to guess, I'd say he takes out the Barter and Bloods and the 3 Pillar of Flames for the 2 Needles, the 1 Tribute, the 1 Bonfire, and the 1 Staff. He might take out Mutilate for Nighthawks because you know it's not a bad threat. You know, cast it on turn 3 against control. It can attack planeswalkers early. You know, it's not a terrible card. It's probably better than Mutilate in this matchup. I think his answer to Entreat the Angels is going to be Slaughter Games and Bonfire. I think that's pretty much what his plan is, and he also has 3 duress, so I don't think he's that scared of Entreat the Angels, but we'll see. Nighthawk might be better.
As we do see, Walter has kept his opening 7. Robert taking a mulligan down to 6 here. Can't imagine his deck mulligans very well either, of course, because it means a black-red control deck with no card manipulation.
Yeah.
So it's super important for me to keep 7 cards as we see Walter lead off with a Howl Fountain.
Yeah, Robert's only card draws 1 Staff of Nim, basically.
Yeah, that one's even in his sideboard, so.
Yeah.
And 6 mana.
And 6 mana.
Yeah. So no real velocity for his deck, as we're going to see a Sulfur Falls here. Robert has his Rakdos Guildgate, and he's going to follow that up with a Blood Crypt.
Looks like he kept the Curse of Deathsoul in the deck. And
you're going to see a Grafdigger's Cage. Grafdigger's Cage, they're primarily to stop Snapcaster Mage. Interesting that you'd see him bring that in. The main reason, of course, being that with Game 1, where he did Slaughter Games him, he did see the number of copies of Snapcaster Mages that Walter has access to, and it is only just 2, so I'm not sure if that's worth boarding a card in for.
Maybe he also wanted to shut down Think Twice.
Okay.
I mean, that's a possibility. Again, we know that Robert has a lot of removal in his deck that he wanted to take that's not great against control, so maybe he just wanted to get rid of some cards. And you know, it's not bad. If you could shut down the Think Twice and a Snapcaster Mage, I think a Grafdigger Cage is fine. I'd be surprised if he brought in all 3. It might be a one-of.
Sure.
But
you do see a Rakdos Keyrune get hit by a Dissipate there from Walter. Rakdos Keyrune playing a huge role in the last game that we watched. We'll see here, I believe we're gonna see a Liliana the Veil, so maybe baiting out that counterspell, seeing if we can get Liliana to resolve. And we're going to see,
yeah, well,
we're gonna see a Think Twice.
You got one side to Think Twice.
And no negate there from Walter, so Liliana's going to resolve, and it's going to start going to work on the hands here now.
Curse of Deathsoul's easy discard.
Yeah, and that's what he's going to discard, and Supreme Verdict is an easy discard for Walter, so.
He has a land here for a Jace, that's pretty good.
There's your land. And
looks like a Jace.
There is your Jace Memory Adept. You guys can't see it on the glare, but we will bring it up for you guys. This card picking up in popularity like crazy now. Milling 10, a effective way to beat these control decks after sideboard instead of having these, you know, creature battles and all these players playing Wraths and stuff like that. Attacking from a different angle. And it does not take many activations for Jace to be able to win the game.
The funny thing is, though, Robert did draw the 1 Elixir of Mortality.
Oh, really?
He just drew the 1 So that's kind of interesting. I don't think it's going to matter if Jace goes to Ultimate, but it's going to be interesting to see how this game plays out because Robert doesn't really have an effective way to deal with the Planeswalker, especially when he's stuck at 3 mana.
Yeah.
And discarding cards every turn to Liliana.
So we do see another Liliana activation here. Elixir of Mortality, the 1 of in Robert's sideboard. An ironic draw there. But we'll see if Robert can get that off of the board. If Walter can get off of the board. I think priority number 1 right now is just to take care of that Liliana if he's able to.
I don't think he cares about it, to be honest. I mean, I think he's going to be able to probably deal with it before it gets to Ultimate because Robert's not really doing much. But the fact is that if Jace goes Ultimate, Jace beats Liliana every time.
Sure. Just separate, we are going to see it tick up to 6 here, and Robert's going to discard Thunderball.
Discard Thunderball. That's surprising.
And we do know he has Olivia in his hand, as we're going to see a spell get cast here in response, I believe. We're going to see Sphinx's Revelation. So Robert's discard was a little bit hasty, as there's going to be a response here. Revelation for 3 here from Walter. I'm a little bit surprised to see him discard that Thunderball Hellkite. I know he has Olivia in his hand, but I mean, can you realistically think Olivia's going to get the job done?
Yeah, and if he's not even going to cast it, then what's the point?
Yeah.
I just don't understand that. Because if he draws a land next turn and he has the Thundermaw, he can play the Thundermaw, try to get the resolve, hopefully deal with the Jace, and then he can discard.
So now we're going to see Jace tick up 1. Gonna mill Robert a card.
So it's possible that Walter might put Robert on having two Thundermaws in his hand.
Sure.
So now he's like, oh, well, I'll get it up to 6 just in case you do top deck a land. Not knowing that Robert actually chose to just discard a Thundermaw.
And now we're going to see a Searing Spear target the Liliana, knock it down to 3 counters. So no fear of the ultimate right now. And we're going to see a Rakdos return as Robert's draw step for the turn. Rakdos return for 2, rather unimpressive, especially after a resolved Sphinx's Revelation. And you really see how Jace, it's a card that was pulled to the forefront, for the blue-white flash mirrors, for your blue-white-red versus blue-white mirror. But even in this particular matchup, and just against control decks in general, just a really, really powerful weapon.
Yeah.
And we are going to see a Dissipate here. And again, this kind of stems back from the point that we saw in the last game, too. We don't know the exact contents of Walter's hand, but, is that Rakdos return really that big of a deal? Is it worth dissipating?
I mean, if he wants to keep Jace at 6 and he's just trying to ultimate it, maybe. But again, I think he's just afraid of the card Rakdos return, and he's just has it imprinted in his brain that I can't let that card resolve because it's so good against control. But in reality, it's not always that good against control. Sometimes your opponent's casting it for 2, and you have plenty of cards that you can discard to it. So let it resolve and counter something that really matters.
So you do see Jace is going to tick up 1 more. No land there from Walter, and he does just pass the turn back. Liliana has depleted Robert's hand, and you're going to see another activation here, discarding a card. Can't quite make sure what that one is, but Azorius Charm hits the bend here for Walter. I think Walter is very content to play this game. We can do this do-si-do as long as you would like to, I think is what he's thinking.
I probably would have cycled the Azorius Charm.
Now that I do not think that we can do.
No. He has a Graph Digger's Cage in play.
As Robert has a Graph Digger's Cage in play, so we are going to have to stop this game, and we are going to have our spotter stop this for you guys because.
Well, that's one way Robert could win this game.
Yeah. As Graph Digger's Cage is in play, and he's already drawn the card from that, so we'll see, what's going to happen here as far as a game rewind, all of that stuff, and we'll have a ruling for you guys in just a moment because Think Twice cannot be cast, and he did already draw the card. And as you said, that is one way that Robert can't get himself out of the situation, oddly enough.
So that's why he boarded in the Graph Digger's Cage. He knew that this exact situation would occur. I'm just going to board in 1, leave it in the side. I'll just put the Graph Digger's Cage way at the left there.
Try to entice.
The game will go on for several turns. So it looks like they're moving ahead.
Yeah, it looks like
probably giving a warning.
Yeah, we'll probably give him a warning there, and the card that he drew off of Think Twice, they'll just have it be the card he draws for his draw step instead, and then you'll see the Jace activation there. +1, gonna mill Robert a card, draw Walter a card, and it looks like our game state is where it needs to be now.
Yeah, with only 4 mana. Oh wow. Yeah, with only 4 mana, there's not much Robert can do to get himself out of this position.
No.
Even if he manages to ultimate Liliana, it's really not that good.
And now we are going to see Entreat the Angels, bring some Angels to the party. And now Walter is attacking from 2 different angles. He has the damage angle here with the Angel tokens and Jace looming as far as the milling and going ultimate and stuff like that. And then that's something that a black-red control deck with no card manipulation, and obviously he's taking a mulligan and has no lands and, no real options. Can't imagine him getting out of this situation.
Well, he does have an Elixir of Immortality, so he'll get to gain 5 life and shuffle all those cards back in and hope to get another draw step. But yes, I agree with you. It is not looking very good.
As we are going to see Liliana take down one of those Angel tokens. The plan of ticking up is no longer a viable one, and I believe this is what we call the driver's seat as far as whereas Walter is in right now. The world is his oyster, as we see Jace, I believe, ticking up another time here, going up to 9.
I think Robert's only out is that Walter tries to flashback his thing twice again.
For some reason, I don't think that's going to happen.
You never know.
I've seen some things.
You never know.
I've seen some things. Been playing Magic a long time, but I just don't think that's going to happen.
Take a bonfire.
Shake your bonbon.
Yeah, might as well. Let's go for it. Kill an Angel.
Yeah, I mean, this kills an Angel.
Move Jace away from ultimate a little bit.
Yeah, I can't imagine a world we're not casting.
I don't think it'll resolve, but
it could be countered fast enough. So you do see counterflux here from Walter. Those X spells, they're meeting those counter spells.
Yeah.
Rakdos Return, Bonfire of the Damned, those things are getting countered fast. We do see an island here from Walter, makes his land drop.
I think Robert's best play right now is to look through Walter's graveyard and put the Think Twice on top
Yeah.
to try to bait him. It's pretty much the only choice he has.
Move it to the forefront. Cross your fingers. Hope it can happen.
Yeah.
He draws a card. Hi.
Another bonfire?
Is it another bonfire? It is. Does not look like it. I spell Arachnos key right? I knew it.
Yep.
I knew
There
it.
it is. Just in time.
Not always there when you pull,
Yep.
but I'm always on time. The game winner last game is not going to be able to save in this game. Pretty much a formality at this point, as Walter will.
If I was Walter, I would really focus on closing this game out quickly because there's only 15 minutes left in the round, and this matchup does not seem fast.
No, not fast at all.
The one thing you don't want is a draw in round one. So if I was Walter, I'd start picking up the pace a little bit and trying to close this thing out.
Yeah, I mean, we're here in Dallas.
Don't be reckless, but,
We're in a 10-round tournament, and we're going to see another Entreat the Angels. And I agree with you. Time is something that these two players do need to keep in mind. 15 minutes right now. This game will take them another 2 or 3 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, you just get to a point when you're this far ahead to just rest on your laurels a little bit and relax. And you really shouldn't relax. You got to remember that there's another game that you have to play.
We do see a draw step here from Robert. Not a bonfire of the damned. But I definitely agree with you. These two players, especially Walter, because he is down a game, needs to be cognizant of the clock. But for Robert's side as well, I mean, starting off with a draw of this tournament, I mean, basically as good as a wash.
Yeah, Robert has to know that the odds of him winning this game are pretty slim.
Yeah.
So by him not conceding and just dragging it along, he's basically giving up on the third game because I don't see them. If it gets to 10 minutes, it's probably unlikely they'll be able to, because none of them don't really have any win conditions. There you go. I think Robert kind of realized that.
Yeah, and you are going to see the concession there, as I think both players are kind of aware that time is going to be a factor here.
Because they have to shuffle now. I mean, if it gets to under 10 minutes, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not they can finish, because these are both control decks that don't have any aggressive finishers. So we'll see what happens.
So Walter Milan is going to win game 2 there. We will have a game 3, and even right now you're going to see both players are kind of re-sideboarding as well, so that takes a little bit of time as well. Yeah, we might have some mulligans here. So time is definitely of the essence here for both players, as they do not want to draw right now. I've been in that situation. Yeah. It sucks.
Not round one.
It is not good in these large tournaments to have a draw.
I mean, Robert can get a turn 4 Thunderbolt, so he can definitely close out the game quickly.
Sure.
It's Walter who really is going to have to struggle to win within 10 minutes.
Yeah, it basically doesn't exist for his deck. No. Again, there isn't a card that he can steal a game with. His deck is so control-oriented, and you see Niv Mizzet, you see Angel Serenity. The card that he could actually close a game out with relatively quickly is Entreat the Angels, but we know, and I'm pretty sure Robert knows, that Robert has answers.
Yeah.
He has Mutilate, he has Bonfire of the Damned, Entreat the Angels is not game over. We've already proven that.
I mean, if it gets to 10 minutes and I were Robert, I would definitely board in the Nighthawks, because it's unlikely Walter's going to be able to win in 10 minutes. So you got to do what you can to try to win as fast as you can, because you're basically in this situation where I'm either going to win or I'm going to draw. I'm not going to lose.
Sure.
So let's try to get aggressive here.
Sure.
I don't think boarding in Nighthawks is going to tilt the matchup in Walter's favor somehow, where he's going to be able to win suddenly.
Desperate times, desperate measures.
Yeah, and I don't think it's that bad, especially on the play. It gets under Dissipate, you cast it. I'm not even sure Walter's going to keep in the Searing Spear. I mean, it's completely reasonable that he boards out the Pillars and the Searing Spear in this matchup. I mean, it kind of deals with Olivia, but beyond that, I mean, actually, he probably needs it for the Key Rune. But still, I mean, I would still, if you can jam out a Nighthawk there, and then on turn 4, if you can play a Key Rune and Duress them, and then try to resolve a Thundermaw on turn 5, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. And I mean,
that's the kind of draw that you'll need to win quickly, which is kind of what you want.
Searing Spear is a card, again, that Walter only has 2 copies of. So it's not like he's overloaded with those. You know, like a normal blue-white-red mid-range deck would be. So, I mean, I don't disagree with you that Vampire Nighthawk is a way to steal a game. And it's not a card that you would conventionally board in this matchup, but when you do have 10 minutes left and you don't want to get a draw.
When I have 10 minutes left, I don't want Barter in Blood. I don't want Curse of Death's Hold. I don't want Tragic Slip, really. I don't want Pillar of Flame. I want to bring. I don't think you need the Pithing Needles. I'd rather have Nighthawks. I'd rather have Bonfire, Tribute. I guess you can bring in the Staff. I definitely wouldn't bring in the Grafdigger's Cage.
Yeah. Except to entice.
Unless to entice the thing first. Yeah.
Classic entice. So we'll see. Robert is going to keep his opener, as is Walter. We're underway. Rakdos Guildgate to start things off. Just under 11 minutes to go.
And it looks like Walter does have the Searing Spear.
So we're going to see a Plains here. Rare to not see this deck start off with a dual land, not a Hallowed Fountain, not a Clifftop Retreat, not a Steam Vent. So that could be a little bit interesting.
Yeah, because the island is really what turns on all those lands.
Yeah. It's a little bit surprising not to see a basic start the show, but we do see a Clifftop Retreat here. We're going to see a Swamp and just go. So no Nighthawk, no Rakdos Keyrune, no real big plays here.
Well, the good thing for Robert, though, is without access to double blue, he knows he can pretty much resolve any spell he wants. But he doesn't have the Olivia this turn. So.
Because we're going to see a Think Twice here from Walter on Robert's end step.
There's double blue.
Second island does pass back, and we do know that after sideboard he can have up to 5 counter spells, 3 dissipates, 2 counterflux, and he has not even played a spell yet this game. This seems like to me, Osip, an answer-heavy hand.
Yeah, he kept in the Mutilates. He has a Bonfire. I mean, again, you got to pick your battles, and I don't think his strategy in this game is really going to make much sense when you realize they only have 9 minutes left to finish up the game.
This feels like a classic case of me of just, poor role assessment.
Yeah.
He can't be. You're not going to really, do very well being reactive against the Sphinx Revelation because you don't have anything that can keep up with that. As we see Pillar of Flame go upstairs for Walter, so he doesn't have to discard for the turn. We're going to see a Swamp here from Robert. Let's see if we can get some sort of play here.
He's got the Thunder Wand, though. You got to know he has a Dissipator or Counterflux.
No world where that's going to resolve.
Again, if you're Robert, I think you have to wait until you draw a Duress or Walter gets greedy and tries to tap out for a Jace. You can't just run a guy out there like that.
Sure. As we are going to see a draw step here, you're going to see another Rakdos Guildgate come into play. Looking for a proactive spell. I think I see him thrumming through a Rakdos Return, but again, kind of meh.
Yeah.
This feels like a Sphinx's Revelation to me. Actually, okay, we're going to see a Jace here.
You see, that's the thing that's why I hated the Thundermaw play. You have so few threats. Your hand is all answers. You can't just hope your opponent doesn't have a counterspell. So often people just aren't patient enough, and they're just like, well, I hope my opponent doesn't have a counterspell. But they don't realize if your opponent does have a counterspell, you're in terrible shape.
Yeah.
And I'd rather hope that my opponent makes a mistake, which I think is more likely than not having a counterspell. With the amount of time left, I could easily see Walter getting a little anxious and just trying to jam something out there like a Jace.
Well, what if you knew you were going to draw another Thundermaw Hellkite?
Oh, in that case, why not?
What if you knew the whole time you were going to draw one?
The keen insight of Robert Tetu.
As Robert does top deck another Thundermaw Hellkite, taking care of the Jace.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have milled 10.
Yep, there you
Maybe
go.
You should have just
drawn a card. Yep. Oh, Walter. Terrible decisions.
But we are going to
see a Detention Sphere.
We'll see a Detention Sphere take care of the dragon. And okay,
there we go.
Right back in Big Ern's face.
Finish the turn and then play 5 additional turns.
So Detention Sphere, as you guys see on the screen, taking care of the Thundermaw Hellkite, and now Jace going back to work on the library. Second of 3 copies that Walter has after sideboard. One good top deck deserves another, am I right?
Why not? Let's get a Grafdigger's Cage here.
How about a Slaughter Games?
Do we have enough to Bonfire it?
Bonfire for 4, that's going to take, 9 mana?
4, I think so. Yeah.
You see him tapping 8, you see the 9th one. All right, got to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So that's going to take care of the Jace. So the reactive elements in Robert's hand are finally coming out. But again, he's in that situation.
Robert's hand is all defense. He's got a Slaughter Games, which he probably, I'm not sure if Walter casts Entreat the Angels, which it looks like he will. I won't do much. But, well, the Mutilate comes in handy. he's definitely not going to lose this game. It looks like the way he sideboarded. So I just, you know, it's I don't know if he's going to be able to win it. So now he's going to be able to slaughter games. I think you have to name and treat the Angels here.
You think you can treat over Revelation in this situation?
Again, in this situation, obviously it contradicts what I said earlier, but I think in this situation with 6 minutes left, Robert kind of has to know he's going to beat me with an Entreat the Angel, probably.
So we're going to see Glare, and within that Glare, we're going to see Angel Serenity, Terminus, and a mystery card in the middle. I believe the mystery card is Dissipate. All right, so he does name Entreat the Angels.
And again, I think he can't afford to have Walter top deck and Entreat the Angel and be able to cast it for 5 with 3 mana up for a Dissipate for my Mutilate.
Sure.
So I think he just has to, you know, I think Robert's in the position now where, like, well, I'm probably not going to win, but you're certainly not going to win either.
Sure. And the scary part, obviously, here is, you know, taking those out of the deck. Yes, it takes care of one problem. The other problem still looming is Sphinx Revelation.
Yeah.
That's the thing that he needs to avoid right now if you're Robert. Just please don't draw that. As you do see Angel Serenity, and that card's not even that big of a deal. That's the card that just trades 1 for 1. So.
Yeah, I don't... basically, Walter needs to top deck a Sphinx Revelation and overload Robert with threats. But the thing is, 2 of his Jaces are in his graveyard already.
Yep.
He doesn't have Entreat the Angels. He has Angel Serenity, but that's unlikely to win him the game. But you know, we'll see how it happens. Robert's hand isn't that great against Angel. I think he has a Mutilate, but if Walter's able to top deck a couple other cards here.
Walter just says, draws his card and just says go, as we see a Swamp come into play. I think the reason he did that is he wants to have enough mana to play Angel plus Dissipate in the same turn.
Yeah.
So he's looking for that 10th mana source, has 9 right now, and we are going to see number 10 right there.
And this could win it for him. I mean, Robert has a Bonfire. He's going to need 13 mana in order to kill it with the Bonfire. He's got to Mutilate.
Does this work?
Oh,
Vampire Nighthawk.
There you go.
Okay.
That is good against Angel.
That'll work. So top deck Vampire Nighthawk from Robert, and it does feel like we are in that situation. Okay, so there's your Dissipate.
And there you go.
So that's going to take care of that. And now the Mutilate is going to come through here.
Come on. Walter should have known that Robert's going to have another answer for it. Because Walter can at least top deck an answer to a Nighthawk.
Sure.
He can't top deck an answer to Mutilate being cast and killing my Angel.
So now he just says go.
That's...
2 decks with a lot of reactive elements, as we're going to see Elixir Immortality drawn. A lot of reactive elements, not a ton of proactive elements from either player.
Again, it's just unfortunate because I don't think either of them really thought about the time and how it was going to impact this game.
We see Counterflux take care of the Elixir. So now we're just countering anything that comes in.
Yeah, I don't... Is that... Yeah, not quite sure.
Walter's going to draw a card. Just passes the turn back. We know he has a Terminus and a Mystery card. Robert draws a card now, passes back, and likely to see this, you know.
Good old draw go.
Rakdos Keyrune. I think we'd rather have the Counterflux for that one.
Yeah.
We see Glacial Fortress here. And we do know that Walter's deck is very, you know, mass removal heavy. It is pretty soft to Rakdos Keyrune. It's the card that won Robert game 1, as there are only 2 Searing Spears and then 3 Azorius Charms to delay the inevitable.
Yeah.
As we see Pillar of Flame drawn for Robert.
And again, Walter really has to be kicking himself for dissipating that Nighthawk.
Yep.
He would have still had his Angel Serenity in play. Granted, he wouldn't have been able to attack with it, but, you know.
Glacial Fortress put into play by Walter. Here comes the Keyrune again.
There's a feeling of dread to stop the attack.
All right, a little time walk. Tap that guy down. You see Ultimate Price, Pillar of Flame, Vampire Nighthawk, the card drawn for Robert this turn. Am I going to cast it? I am. Walter, can I find his Sphinx's Revelation? He's playing each one of his lands, hoping to draw one. Here comes another one. You see Hollow Fountain just says go. Swamp into play. Activate. Attack. Feeling of Dread taps him. That's going to be gone. Minute 30 left on the clock here. I smell a draw.
When we had that graphic display.
Yeah, I smell a draw.
It's... Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he has a bonfire. And they have 5 extra turns. I mean, Robert can win if Walter doesn't have any answers to these attackers.
Let's see what we have here. We're going to have Searing Spear take out the Nighthawk.
Why? He has a Terminus in his hand, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
I mean, I'm not sure. I thought he had a Terminus in his hand. I don't know why he would spear the Nighthawk there.
We're going to see Pillar of Flame go upstairs here. And now you're going to see a Liliana of the Veil. You're going to see an activation. It's going to move up, discard ultimate price. Walter discards his card. Yeah, I'm not quite sure the reasoning behind Searing Spearing that. The key rune is the bigger problem here of the 2 cards.
Yeah, I mean, if he spares the key rune, he pretty much guarantees that the game is going to draw.
Yeah.
Now it's still very much in question. It looks like Robert can actually finish this out.
Robert draws a second Liliana of the Veil.
I'd probably make him discard first.
Yeah. That's what we're going to have happen. Terminus,
yep, he did
Terminus
have the Terminus
down.
I knew he had the Terminus. Yeah, that's probably going to cost Walter. I mean, unless he needs to top deck now.
And they are in turns right now. So Robert is going to be turn 0. So he's going to have 0, 2, and 4. And this is turn 0, so we're going to see an attack here down to 9.
And he has a bonfire, so I think he's going to be able to do it.
You know, if Robert doesn't draw anything, and you see him tapping the mana here, this looks like this is going to be 1, 2, 3. I think this is a bonfire for 4, I believe. It's either going to be 3 or 4.
I'm surprised he would cast the bonfire now with a Liliana in play. I mean, I'm not sure why he would just cast it for 4 there. Yeah, I don't understand. It's just... So now he makes him sack the Angel, attacks for 3, drops him to 2, and then he recasts the Angel.
And then he makes him sack it again.
Yep.
Now, what card is that? Okay, so it's just a... Is that a Liliana activation? Okay, so make some sacrifice. Okay. It's going to activate the key rune. And Walter has 1 card left in hand. It's just Angel Serenity. Right now, Angel Serenity is not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's going to need to be Snapcaster Mage. It's going to need to be Searing Spear. Walter Duress the Terminus.
Feeling of Dread.
Is that another Feeling of Dread?
No, but even a Feeling Dread,
that would actually do it for the draw.
It's an Angel.
Yep. So same thing as last turn. Robert draws his card. Make you sacrifice the Angel. Activate. Kill you?
Wow.
Oh
Wow.
my goodness.
Top deck and Azorius Charm. Yep. And this game will end in a draw.
Unbelievable. A draw it is. Robert Tetu, Walter Milan into the draw bracket.
That is surprising.
Into the draw bracket. I thought Robert was going to pull that out.
Well, Walter definitely gave him every opportunity to do so. Although, I think Robert could still, I don't know if, yeah, I don't like casting the Duress the turn before.
Okay.
Because you know your opponent's just, yeah, I don't know. I think Robert still might have been able to pull that off. You want to cast a Duress on the last possible turn, pretty much.
Okay.
Just to ensure, like, you don't need to make him discard random cards anymore.